Howdy, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Earth Station One. And this time, it's a science episode.
Science!
That's right, folks. Good news, everyone. It's time to talk all about science.
Science!
Every time I say that word, you're going to repeat that, aren't you?
How many times have we done this?
How
many years have we been doing this?
I know. I still get a headache about how many years we've been doing this, so it's okay. And it's a great time to talk about it because there is so much going on right now that technology is changing so quickly. Nature is changing around us, and it's amazing how much you have to keep up with, and it's only going to get faster and faster, folks. And that's why I love doing these episodes, because we get to put our science geek stuff head on, and it's awesome with that. And we're joined by Chip Johnson. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And, it's great to have you. And we'll have our other scientists in waiting, as we like to call them. We'll have Dr. Scott, we'll have Mike Faulkner back, and have, all be wearing white lab jackets next time you see us and everything. But it's going to be a fun time to talk about it. Thanks for joining us tonight, sir.
Thanks again.
And of course, Mr. Mike Gordon is here.
Howdy.
And ready to do a little scientific talk?
Science!
No, that was scientific. Not science. But anyway.
It's okay. Well, at the going rate, it might be the next time we join you, we might all be replaced by AIs. Because that seems to be a pretty big topic right now. Heck, it's even the number one movie of the summer so far, at least this weekend anyway. I think a lot of us have been talking, on this show, we've been talking about AIs as well, but it really seems like things are approaching rapidly a point where I thought we were still years behind. But I guess that goes to show you how fast things can happen. But we've got, of course, originally, I think earlier this year, a lot of artists were upset about AI programs taking existing art and reconfiguring it into original quote unquote pieces of art digitally. We've seen is it Chat GPT, right? That is a program that a lot of people are concerned with as far as what it can do AI wise. So much so that it's one of the factors, not the only factor, but one of the main factors that the Screenwriters Guild is on strike currently. And as of this recording right now, the actors have joined them as far as their concern about the use of AI in entertainment. Also,
that's not the only reason they're striking.
No, as I said, it's not the only reason, but it is a big reason. And it is something that is concerned about because it is being used more and more in movies and entertainment, as we've seen. And somewhat recently, some advanced humanoid robots were invited to the UN to chat a little bit, and they basically said that they could lead the world a much better way than humans could. So that's not at all concerning, is it? Chip,
we're not saying they're wrong. I'm just...
No, we are not saying that they're wrong. But I think a lot of us were pretty much thinking, oh, we're at least a few decades away from this kind of talk, right? But here is like ripped from the headlines like yesterday. So how concerned do we need to be about AI right now, do you think, Chip?
I'm going to be honest. I know there's a lot of artists that I follow that, for example, DeviantArt as the website lost a ton when they started allowing AI art, because it's really coming into the big issue right now is more copyright and copyright protection with AI than it is independent creation. So it's from what I understand, that's what a lot of the artists are upset about. That's what a lot of, the writers and even the actors. And I've actually saw something just before I got on here about an author was getting into a similar thing being written into their contract about feeding their work into sort of a Chat GPT kind of situation to sort of generate something that sounds like them without actually involving the artist. So there is, it seems like it's more of a copyright issue. I don't know if we're necessarily to the, Terminator Salvation, everybody start disconnecting and rebuilding your bomb shelters from the 80s. I don't know if we're quite there yet. And also, I think that's it's a whole sci-fi argument, but I've actually seen some works that I really like that it doesn't necessarily have to go that way, that there is, it's not inherently that, oh, the robots are going to come marching in with guns. I think that's, don't get me wrong, it's a possibility eventually, but I don't think it's necessarily an inevitability.
No, and there are pluses about using AI in various products and such. I do a lot of graphic design with my day job, and also in my freelance work that I do on the side of doing my work. And the new versions of Photoshop and Illustrator are going to be using artificial intelligence to make the process of designing a little bit easier, like creating reflections for stuff or color selections or items like that. And there are good things about it. And AI is not anything new, folks. AI has been around for years. And, that's why you have facial recognition. That's artificial intelligence right there. When Judy and I traveled back to Europe last year and we came back into the country, we didn't even have to show our passports. They just scanned our face and looked at our airplane ticket, and boom, it was right there because it was all facial recognition. It was stuff, we had talked on our previous episode of Earth Station One about, how the plot for the new Mission Impossible movie was something like Person of Interest. And that was years ago. And that's what we're going on almost, 7-8 years ago. And facial recognition, they actually had to stop it in Facebook because too many people were complaining about it. But the government has been using facial recognition for almost 20 years already.
And most people's phones use it. I mean, that's how you have access. You don't need a password to get in your phone anymore. Your phone looks at your face and says, "Oh, I know it's you."
And everyone hasn't been complaining about using Alexa or using Siri.
Well, some people have, but
yeah,
I will say that, my major concern with all of this right now is very particular to my job.
Well, because you're a teacher.
Coming up with new ways, which is it's kind of like all cheating systems. You're going to have a bunch of them that are going to do it really cheaply, and it's going to be that kind of like, this doesn't sound like you at all. You're using words that I have never heard you use once in a sentence. And I'm pretty sure than you. And then you're going to have the kids who are going to figure out the way to like really kind of play with a system, and they're going to invest so much energy where they can so you're going to have to, you watch within 5 years, you're going to have human prover algorithms built backwards to sort of say this was generated by an AI, both for teaching and also for contracts and other stuff.
I think there was a study done last summer that college students across the country, over 50% of them said they use AI to help them write papers now. And I don't mind you using it to help you write the paper. I just know that there are a lot of kids that, because we've already seen examples in schools where it's like somebody typed paper on 1812 history into Chat GPT, and you only caught it because it read some fictional book set in 1812, got fed into the algorithm, and it was like, oh, and then Alexander Hamilton came forward in time and was in the story, and it's like, what? Run that one by me again.
And Zorro was no, just kidding.
Yeah, you get that because they're not perfect.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. I think there's a misconception too. AI does not mean sentience, right? It just means that these things are programmed to. I've been watching a lot of ads for IBM selling their wares to corporations for being able to use AI generators to predict patterns of shopping or shoppers or customers or budgets or anything like that, so that they can manage their businesses better. Where it comes into with the artistic community and the film industry is interesting because, we've already seen that there are digitally scanned actors out there. Heck, if you've seen any movie in the last 5 years, you've seen digitally scanned actors used mostly for de-aging, but so for other purposes as well. I don't think it as far as the my understanding with the writers and the actors in particular, they're not saying that they're against this completely. What they're saying is that this needs to be regulated, and the talent involved still needs to be reimbursed for the use of their images.
Also, their
Right now,
voices too.
I saw a wonderful article by actress, writer, director Justine Bateman, who this was done in May, and she laid it out by saying, like, look, the scanning's already in practice. Talent agencies are recruiting their clients to be scanned. What this means for the actors, they get 75 cents on the dollar. Their digital image can be triple and quadruple booked. That means you're not getting the actor, you're just getting a copy of them. The next step will be films customized for a viewer based on their viewing history, which has been collected for many years. Actors will have the option to have their image bought out and be used in anything at all. Viewers can order up their films. For example, I want a film about a panda and a unicorn who saved the world in a rocket ship, and then put Bill Murray in it. And I'm sure Bill Murray would be one of the first to say, yeah, I'm in on that.
Yeah, he'd sign up for that in a heartbeat.
From there, I believe viewers will be given the ability to digitally scan themselves in, pay an extra little dollars to have themselves inserted into custom films. You'll start to see licensing deals made with studios so that you can order at films like Star Wars, put their face on Luke Skywalker's body, their ex-wife's face on Darth Vader's body, et cetera, et cetera. And you can also expect to see the training of AI programs in older hit TV series in order to create new seasons. Family Ties, for example, she uses as, I don't know where she got that from, but for as an example, has 167 episodes comprising of 7 seasons. An AI program could easily be trained to create an 8th season with everybody involved. And yeah, I mean, if we're talking about digitally scanned actors, we're also talking about not a need for makeup people, not a need for costume design, not a need for like a lot of other people that are in the crew. The industry is very concerned about this getting out of hand, and they don't trust the studios, the powers that be, to like say, no, we got you covered, we got your backs, because they've never had their backs in the past. So but yeah, that's a potential future that we're looking at as far as having all these things available thanks to the use of these AI scanning programs.
Oh, very much so. And it's interesting. I was reading another article just earlier today about an actor who had his likeness scanned in for one video game, and they ended up using his likeness in backgrounds on over 30 different video games.
Mm-hmm.
And such. And, and he didn't even know about it until someone said, hey, so-and-so shot you in the head the other day. And so it's pretty scary what they can do with it. But people have been doing this stuff with Photoshop and, other photo editors for 30 years, dude. And, ever since you had any options of photo manipulation, hell, the National Enquirer has been doing crap like this. You just have now it being automatically done by computer in within seconds, instead of having to, cut out the images and stuff. And, it's interesting that, they're doing that. But, even Apple has come out and said, they're going to be training the phone that they can have your voice, a full voice on your phone, if you talk into it for 15 minutes. The intelligence you can have a full conversation with yourself, and you will sound like yourself, your mannerism, everything. And it's just, that's what voice actors are afraid of, because they can do cartoons or commercials and not have to pay the actors, even though it's their voice up there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a program that that is out there right now that we could use that would actually just make it sound like all 3 of us. We wouldn't even be necessary.
Ooh, awesome! Let's use it.
It might sound smarter than us, so maybe that would be an indication that it would be false.
Wouldn't that be like the kind of the real joke of the whole thing? Is you did that as a joke. You put like an episode out next week that is just like one of those AI things, and it gets like the highest ratings ever. Wow, you guys have never been this funny.
It definitely would. It definitely would. But I guarantee you it wouldn't be you looking at our past episodes to generate material. I tell you that. So yeah, it's not and yeah, like as Mike said, the technology is always going to be there to do these things, and that's not what the writers and actors and everybody else is concerned about. It's just being properly credited, properly compensated for these things, as well as many other things that are on their minds as well. So that's the concern there.
They're also worried
And I
about
think
it
it's
being
very,
abused,
very
pretty much. You know, that's
well,
what it's all about.
absolutely. That's the very definition of abuse. And and they don't want to make sure that the people who are the true talents, people who are that people are paying to see, even if it's just their likenesses, are the ones who are getting credit for that and getting compensated. So those are things that are sort of AI wise that are around out there. The fact that a bunch of them went to the UN and said we can run things better is slightly entertaining, but it's also unnerving. I think too, hey, okay, well, good luck, based on elections that we've had here, I would not put it past to an AI to be elected in some position here. So
No, but you're
Wasn't
going
it?
to get it more and more in, artificial intelligence helping building cars, helping designing new cars, safety vehicles. And as the intelligence grows, it's, and the programming goes, that it's going to start, you're going to see less people on the assembly line because the artificial, intelligence is going to be running the computers and the robots and such. So,
well, where there are robots, sure. I mean, I did see something that was kind of amusing that said something like, "I did not imagine a future where low wage people people were making low wages to do menial work, and artists all art was being done by AIs." That's the opposite of the future I think we kind of hoped for.
okay.
I mean, and that's what, unfortunately, that looks like the present that we're getting in the near future that we have.
No, I've seen some beautiful AI created artwork, and it's all
Sure.
original stuff, and it's not.
And that's wonderful, considering that most of the people who are making low wages, those jobs could be done by computers, and they're not spending the money to do that.
You'd be surprised. It was real. It's going to make, in some ways, I'm in favor of a lot of it. So it's not all evil and everything.
He welcomes our computer overlords.
I will say, Mike, have you been to self checkout at a store lately?
Oh, exactly.
It's
Self
AI.
checkout. It's all AI.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Cashiers.
That's exactly right.
Because you go to a Walmart or a Target, and they have 20 cash registers, but all of them are closed because they're sending people through the self checkout because it's easier and it's cheaper for the companies.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what's cheap for the company. What's cheaper for the company is great, right? That's what should be all about, right?
Eventually, AI is going to be driving your car, so it is going to happen.
My car. No, it's not going to want my car. I barely want to drive my car.
It'll help kick the cats out of it, so it'll be.
Well, that could help. All right, so enough talk about our computer overlords. What else we got on the science front, Chip?
I did say there's a couple that I was interested in. There's one. Now, I'll go ahead and say that this is one of those, it sounds really cool, but we are first steps on a very long road. But the first, baby steps towards actual nuclear fusion happening on Earth happened back in December. Way quick breakdown of fission versus of nuclear radiation, nuclear energy, and all that. I'm trust me, I realize this is a massively short and truncated version. There's two main ways we make nuclear energy. There's nuclear fission, which involves splitting atoms, nuclear fusion, which involves combining atoms. The reason we do fission exclusively on Earth is because fusion, so far as we've known, takes a huge amount of heat and a huge amount of gravity and raw material. it basically, as I always describe it to students, it would cook anything we could contain it in and basically dig a hole to the core of the earth in about 3 seconds. It would generate so much heat. The thing is, if you compare by orders of magnitude, fusion is way more energy for what you put in versus fission. So we've been trying to make fusion for forever. So the idea of it is essentially the closest we could get to something close to a clean energy source. So this is the fact that we've got, now we're talking like, you know, they managed to make a little atom do a dance kind of thing. It's not a huge, like, you know, they haven't made a fusion reactor, but, you know, if in 50 years or 70 years, this could be, you know, clean energy, or as close as we could possibly get, which kind of awesome. And if you're like me and you grew up in the 80s and 90s where every spy movie villain was going after the secret for cold fusion, there's a certain part of my nostalgic heart that just goes, hey. Going back to that, like all the spy movies in the 80s. Oh, we have cold fusion. I'm like, hey, we might actually have it.
We might. You're not going to see it on the shelf for quite a few years. Probably, hopefully in our lifetime. But, you know, you never know. And the way technology is changing nowadays, it might pop up sooner than later. So it's going to be very interesting.
I think it's a fair point that like things are always happening sooner than later, right? Well, except for like there are certain things that you're like, come on, this hasn't happened already. Mm-hmm. Like I think Mike, you were talking, wanted to talk about too. The finally some folks are you know out there going revisiting the moon, and it's been ages since anybody's visited the moon.
It's pretty amazing. Just this last week, India actually launched a rocket to the moon, and it's going to have a lander on it. Doesn't have people in it yet, but it's going to have a lander, and it's going to the south.
We forgot to send the people.
I can make so many jokes about that right now, but no.
We sent the lander, but we forgot to send the people.
But it's kind of interesting though, because it's only the fourth country from Earth to actually land on the moon.
Isn't that crazy?
If this is their second attempt at trying it though. They tried.
Everybody would have been there by now.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's been 50 years, right? Like you'd think like anybody could have gone, you know, but I guess there's not much to see up there, so nobody really wants to go.
Well, there's tons to see actually up there, and that's why we're going to try have people land on the moon within the next 2 years. We're going to have humans on the moon again. But India is going to be the fourth nation behind the United States, Russia, and China. And it's awesome to see more countries doing that, because the moon will have an international feel. It won't be just the United States, you know, claiming the moon for itself, or Russia claiming it for itself. It's going to be all these nations. And it's just our first step to the galaxy, you know, to the universe. And it's where humanity is eventually going to go. And I think just seeing other countries participate in it, you know, Israel has sent probes to map the moon. Other countries have, you know, Korea has, and it's interesting, but this is big. And this is, like I said earlier, it's the second time they've attempted it. The first time it crashed onto the moon. So it didn't, and because it's not easy to do, folks.
No.
And so it'll be very interesting to see. And we have, you know, SpaceX and also NASA, you know, working hard to, you know, plan the next mission to the moon. And I think they're going to have by the end of the year, I said they think they're going to have the next Artemis mission up to go up and everything. So, and then Artemis 2 is going to orbit the moon, and then 3 is actually going to have astronauts landing on the moon. So that should be by the end of 2024, early 2025. So that's not that far away and everything. So it's pretty cool. So
absolutely. I'm glad to see that, you know, it's something that's a priority for folks again.
It is. And, you know, it's something that we shouldn't have given up. We should have kept on going in the 70s, but other things, you know, people lost interest in it after the glamour of it. But there's so much money to be made. There's so much interest in it and so much private industry that's also gearing up for going into space. And there's even, I just read a story about a company that is looking to actually, go to the asteroid belt and actually bring one of the asteroids and put it into orbit around Earth so we could start mining it. And, so it's, and, they're going to test it and everything. There's so many minerals that, in the asteroid belt that we can use for resources instead of, what we're going into the Earth to do and everything, which is pretty cool. And it's just going to be, it's just a matter of time till they start mining and everything. So it's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other thoughts, Chip, on the space race part, whatever it is now, 14?
57. I mean, I'm interested kind of with what Mike was saying about the asteroid mining is, there's sort of again, my brain goes to all the sci-fi from the 60s and 70s that would have your plucky hero was from those mining, but that's total, side content. But there is a realistic idea of what he's saying about, I really think that is a way to sort of A, get some material, and B, there is material that we have on Earth in very limited quantities because we got it from when we got hit. Billions of years ago, we would get hit, and there's minerals that we don't have a lot of because there wasn't a lot of them on the asteroids. So if we can go pluck them out of the asteroid belt, hey, we suddenly got way more. And that may be some helpful there too.
And it's interesting too, because, they've been discovering also some of Saturn's moons and also Jupiter's moons have water on it. And there's possibilities under the ice layers of life and, resources there that we could possibly use if there's no life, but it has water that we can use as propellant for rockets and such. These can, just propel, they could be used as bases and such. And as we go further and further out, it's pretty awesome stuff.
With it. Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's awesome. And, one of the other things that they're keeping their eye on is Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse, as some people call it.
Don't say it fast. Don't say it 3 times fast.
We might actually see within our lifetime a supernova in the daytime sky, which is pretty awesome and everything, because it's almost like any day now, or in that, because it's like light years away, it's possibly happened already. So, which is it's pretty awesome to see and everything. So there's just so much out there. And, we also have the wonderful space telescope that just celebrated its first anniversary literally today and everything. And the imaging they've gotten just within the last year, it made Hubble look like nothing and everything. That's how powerful this new space telescope is and everything. It's just awesome.
Very cool stuff. Chip, what's something else that's exciting that's happening right now for you?
Continuing, I know the other one that I was really interested in is if the first FDA approved Alzheimer's medication, this just got approved back in July, and I think they said the second one got approved like yesterday. And it again, it's not a cure. To be clear, I'm not claiming that they've cured Alzheimer's, but the first treatment for something like Alzheimer's has been cleared by the FDA. That is a really big step towards starting to treat this disease, which is it is one of those great, leftover, or I guess one of the disease that we don't have the best help for. And I'm just kind of, again, things happening faster. I'm really glad that we're starting to get some medication for that, or some ways to treat that.
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely something that is an ongoing battle. And there, you keep hearing, I mean, I've heard things here and there, a lot of things coming out of more like Australia. Is that right? As far as treatments, possible potential treatments?
Not sure. I just know about the FDA approved Leqembi. That was one I found out about. So if there is treatment in Australia, I could be wrong.
No, I heard that there were some things coming out of there, but I mean, a lot of things are. I don't think people realize how difficult it is to get things approved. But
Oh, it
like
takes
it can
years.
exist for. I was going to say it can exist for a long time before it finally gets approved, and then it's a whole other thing, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the thing. We're constantly making strives for new medication to, help battle different illnesses and such, and, cancer treatments or, weight loss or, stuff like, you also have, of course, they're still fighting against COVID. And, they're saying now that, they're going to have possibly a dual shot in the fall for both the flu and for COVID for the vaccines.
Mm.
That way you don't have to get shot up twice because, the boosters only last so long. And even now, people are still getting it. It's just not as severe because we're getting, vaccinated, or also other people are getting, it's almost like finally people are starting to become immune to it too. But there's new variants still popping up too that are more severe. So it's kind of very similar to what the flu has going on.
But yeah, no, I was really excited to see the thing about Alzheimer's too, especially since I don't think people realize, but I mean, a lot of people can get it as early as 30 years old.
Oh, I know.
So, I mean, and that's, I mean, I think a lot of people consider it still like an old person's disease, but I mean, it can start really, really early. And there's all different types of it too that I think a lot of people are, it seems like I know so many people that are affected by that personally. I think I know more people affected by that disease than cancer, which I know statistically is not true, but for me personally, it's like, my goodness.
Nope, totally makes sense. But it's interesting too, because, with the different advances that we're getting and everything, it's just, you're also having, with medical, but you're also getting, you also have people now suffering because of the weather and the environment around us too, which is pretty crappy, and a lot of, things are happening a lot faster than scientists were saying even 10 years ago. You have issues with the weather, more severe storms, more extreme heat. What they had the hottest day on record just this last week. Yeah. And over 130 degrees. And that's mind blowing, to think about. And
I think I just read something too that said that Death Valley could reach the hottest temperature to ever be measured on the planet.
Yep.
I mean, that's like, what?
Ever.
It's hotter than it's ever been anywhere on this planet. Like, yeah. I mean, you can walk around and get second-degree burns. Like, that's just insane to me.
Extreme flooding and extreme storms happening on the East Coast, up in New England and the mid-Atlantic and such. It's just crazy. And then you have all the fires, which are becoming more and more commonplace, and the smoke from these fires affecting places hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And it's just, becoming more and more extreme. It's just amazing. Or then you also have the heat in the ocean. The water out off of the coast of Florida is in the 90s. You don't have that. That's not normal and everything. And it's going to start killing the hot water. Is going to start, killing the coral and the reefs and, the ecosystems and such. It's just going to continue to be very interesting to see what happens. It's just,
yeah. And as you mentioned too, it's also creating the heat dangers, creating a lot of like fires. We talked about a little bit the fires up in Canada that are affecting us still, and are probably going to continue to affect us for a few months, right? At least.
And fire season started up already in California and Colorado and Washington State, and you're going to have it out there, and it's just like it's it's becoming normal for a lot of places and such. But, it's just not here in the United States. Europe, Italy has had one of their hottest days on record. And a lot of places, and it's just all over the world. It's just not here where it's happening. And but at the same time, they showed a video of people still, in Colorado, I think it was, that they were still, or actually Northern California, they're still able to ski because there was so much snow packed. There's still 30 inches of snow on the top of the mountains at ski resorts.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad for them.
Well, it's just how crazy things are and everything. So
yeah, I mean, at this point with climate change, I mean, it's a thing. We're still seeing the effects of it. It seems like it's worsening. Is this something that it's obviously it's still a concern, but is there any way back from this?
Yeah.
I mean,
that is
just going to
officially above my pay grade in terms of I know that, I mean, just from what I've been able to read, there are arguments that say we've passed the point of no return, and there are arguments that say we haven't. And it is, unfortunately, again, that's the guys who are way above my pay grade figuring that out. And I wish I could.
I am also assuming that there's a bunch of people that are like, no, there's no problem, right?
Of course. Oh, it's just
there's still there deniers out there, right?
Of course.
No comment.
No comment at all. But it's interesting with that kind of stuff. And, it's part of the reason why Judy and I are going to Alaska next year, because we want to see it before it all melts. We want to see the glaciers. We want to be able to say, hey, we walked out off of one, not go, oh, grandpa, stop that little story and everything. So but it's the truth. And, or as we like to say, eventually Atlanta will be beachfront property. So, we just have to wait and see what happens.
Or it'll be like the Futurama episode, and it'll be the sunken city
of Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So switching from environmental issues, let's talk about some consumer products that we're pretty excited about, including Mike, you mentioned that Toyota has a new battery that can last pretty long, right?
Oh yeah.
Can it take you to Alaska?
Eventually, yes. That's one of the complaints that people have been having about electric cars or electric vehicles is the limited amount of battery, and it's not quick also to charge it and everything. And so one of the things with electric vehicles is they're trying to increase the range, and Toyota has actually come out and announced that for their 2027 models, they are going to be introducing a new battery. The average right now is anywhere from 250 to 350 mile range on a battery. They're announcing that there's a new type of battery. It's not a lithium battery anymore. It's more going to be like the batteries you have in your watches and such, and it is going to, the battery has a 650 mile radius between charges. And that's pretty amazing. That's double what a gasoline engine is. And so, because most gasoline engines, you're lucky, I think with my Subaru, we were able to sometimes get like 450 miles per tank. But, that was on highway. But, 650 miles between charges is pretty cool. There's another company that's working, I think it's through Hyundai, that's working on right now 1,000 miles between charges. And it's going to be game changers and everything. And as these come out, it's also the prices of electric cars are going to start dropping. And that's the one holdup right now, is a Tesla is at least 40,000 for the cheap ones. And, not every consumer can afford that for a new car. And so it's, going to be very interesting to see, what happens when, they become more mainstream, and more companies are going towards electric. They even have electric Harleys for motorcycles. And, you're going to be, seeing more and more electric vehicles coming out. And you're on top of electric, though, there's also hydrogen with the hydrogen cells in the vehicles. But those are still also not as popular because electric is more mainstream with that right now. So it's pretty cool. And you're able to see more and more charging stations popping up in shopping centers and gas stations and, libraries and civic centers and such, to be able to charge your car while you go shopping or something. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm pretty sure that, my next vehicle, probably my last one, will be some sort of, at least a hybrid, if not completely electric.
Well, Judy and I, when we purchased a car this last year, but we were hoping to get an electric vehicle, but we do a ton of road trips. We go out and drive everywhere, and going to concerts, going just to go into the mountains and everything. And we started thinking about it. There's not enough charging stations in rural areas yet for it to be practical for us. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. And probably in the next 5 years, though, it's going to be different. You're going to see charging stations right alongside gas stations and such. Even places like Buc-ee's or something already is starting to put in charging stations. And so it's their future, thinking.
Well, there's that, or they may, I know that there's kind of a similar idea has been thought of with sort of dual batteries, where you kind of, when you go to like the Buc-ee's that has a charging station, you charge up the primary and then you have a backup. So if you're halfway up the mountain, you can get like a secondary battery that kicks on, and that's the one that takes the load so that you can get back off.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be an idea too.
We actually rented our first electric vehicle last weekend when we were up in Maryland. And it was like driving an iPad. It didn't have you literally push a button and you go. And it just, because it doesn't make an engine noise. You lay your key card onto the the center console, you go, and everything. It's just on, and you take the key card with you, put the car in park, leave the car, it locks itself, shuts itself off, and it's pretty awesome. And everything. As I told Judy, it's like driving an iPad. So it's pretty fun. So we just had to get used to like little things. It was the one thing that was weird is, like in a Tesla, everything's in the center. I think Mini Coupes used to be that way also, but all the dials and everything is on a big screen. It's like a 14-inch screen in the center of the dashboard. You don't have like a speedometer or anything right in front of you. And that just took a little while to get used to. But it was fairly easy. The pickup was great in this car. It was, we were doing highway and everything, and we had no problem. We had no problem driving miles per hour. So it was great. So
I would imagine that it's one thing, because it's not just, especially if it's just all electric, it's not just running the car, which is one thing, but then it's got to run, it's got the USB ports, and it's got to run, if you're going to use it as a dock for your phone or your iPad or something like that. And certainly if you're running, your AI that's going to drive it. I mean, there's like all sorts of things that I'm sure are going to tap into that, right?
Oh yeah, very much so, and everything. And, I, like you were saying, it's the AI that's going to drive it. The AI to drive it is not there yet, but it will be. It's just a matter of time. And it's going to be very interesting. And I was like thinking about it, that, I'm looking forward to when there's going to be self-driving cars. Not that I want to give up driving or anything like that, but I'm thinking about people like my wife, Judy, who doesn't drive because she has an illness that prevents her from driving. And how freeing and liberating would that be to someone with a handicap or somebody with a disability that, can't drive, how much freedom they can go get in the car, program in. I want to go to the grocery store. I want to go to the mall. I want to go to Baskin Robbins, whatever, and go by themselves and not have to be dependent on somebody else to take them.
It's gonna be a long time. I mean, it sounds great and I get it, but it's like, man, me personally, I don't even like to drive that much, but I can't imagine me getting to a point where I'm completely comfortable with that.
I think you're going to find that it makes me think of what was the one? It was a Tom Cruise movie, but they make a great point about how what eventually kind of happened in that universe was that self-driving became kind of such the norm yourself. So like the idea was that became the luxury, was to have you controlling the car because they had become so automated. It was Minority Report. That's what it was.
Yeah, Minority Report.
And it's like I could actually see that happening where it becomes so easy that like you have to pay a premium to be able to drive yourself, not just for insurance reasons. Like the insurance loving self-driving cars that are not going to hit anything, and giving somebody else, if you're going to drive yourself, you have to pay a premium on your insurance kind of situation too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could see that too.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't, they're still gonna, I mean, is it automatic? Like, are you going to have an AI argue for you when you get into a wreck then? Like, I mean, because the insurance still not going to want to pay for it.
Well, it'll run like I can see if they do AI, then it'll kind of, I think it would kind of run like the AI, like the Teslas and like the self-driving cars they have now, where they have basically 360 field of vision, so there wouldn't be an argument about, well,
who caused the accident.
He cut into my lane, well, I cut into his lane. We got to look at the cameras. It's like
it'd all be recorded on the hard drives in the car and everything.
So, it would basically be, as soon as the accident happens, both, here's the feed, here's what everybody was doing, so it'd be an interesting idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds great, but I mean, I've never known an insurance company give up fighting and not wanting to pay anything. So I don't think that's ever going to change. Once again, thank you for joining us in this review of an update of science for this year.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and close out the show.
Okay, YouTube folks, this is the science portion of the show where we get to talk geeky with you guys at home exclusively. And as always, if you made it this far into the show, thank you. We do appreciate you more than you could ever guess. All right, a little bit of a science question for both of you guys. What science, stuff that you've been following and such, have you, and it could be the most absurd stuff too, that, just gave you a little bit of a chuckle over the last couple months?
The bread thing was pretty funny.
The bread thing with the heat?
Yeah, the cooking bread in the mailbox thing was pretty funny.
It's kind of scary, truthfully. They always the joke, you can fry an egg on the sidewalk. That's how hot it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you can do that and more.
Exactly. And it's scary, There was a story I just heard that somehow earthworms they've been found in the soil in the Arctic Circle. And they're not native to that. And they're adapting to being in the soil up there, and it's going to change the environment up there because it's going to aerate the soil and such, and some plant species and such that are not native to that are going to be migrating north because of it. It's just interesting to show, that scientists are interested in the earthworm, which is pretty cool. So it's interesting stuff. And the other thing that's actually, this one didn't give me a chuckle, but it's really cool. The world's largest radio telescope is being constructed, and it's like 50% complete already, and it's the size of it is just huge, and it's pretty cool. The stuff you're seeing that they're building and everything. And I think the mirrors are going to be as big as a city block for the telescope. So it's cool stuff.
Yeah, the one thing that I saw that I thought was kind of amusing is I guess they have done some studies now, and I guess they've researchers have now have settled the fact that people can actually hear silence. That there are two. They actually had a experiment where they had listeners with two distinct sounds that are shorter than one single sound, although really the total time of the sound is the same. So it's like they actually looked, and the vocal cords, or the vocal, not the vocal cords, but the ear waves, the tone is actually used the same to listen for silence as it is for listening to sound. So you're actually, when you listen and you hear nothing, you're using the same exact muscles and tones and everything else as if you were hearing something. So you're actually hearing nothing, if that makes sense.
Very,
it's Simon and Garfunkel were onto something. There is really a sound.
There is a sound of silence.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Interesting. Chip, do you got anything?
Well, mine are a little bit not as recent, but there are two that make me chuckle in the last year or so. And one of them is the, scientists digging core samples and finding, ancient diseases or something. I forget what it was, but there was some microbe they found in an ice in the Arctic. And it was very much everybody's immediate response was, there's like 1,000 movies saying why this isn't a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And tying back into our talking about AI from earlier, I know one of the things that's been used that AI has been also trying to get to is, because my cats are driving me nuts in the background here, but is translating animals, is being able to figure out what is your cat actually saying using AI algorithms to kind of translate what your cat is saying, which might be useful from time to time, That
would be extremely useful. I find it hard to believe that it's transferable or translatable, because they're just on such a different wavelength. And yet I would sacrifice someone else's body part easily to try to figure out sometimes what they're saying at some points, because it's just like, what do you want?
I think it would probably work a lot closer, if I was to guess, if they'd work a lot closer like those TikTok videos of the dogs with the yes, no, food buttons. That basically you would get like 5 or 6 basic lines of translation that would all basically mean the same thing.
I certainly don't mean any disrespect to dog lovers out there, but I find that dogs would be a lot more simpler. You could do yes or no or squirrel for dogs, but for cats it'd be like, no, it's not quite covering it. There's something they're saying something else, and they certainly have a lot more attitude about it. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. It's it's interesting because could you imagine them having like the collars like they had in Up for the dogs?
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be like, I love you and I just met you, that type of thing. And then imagine what a cat's one would be like.
I can't imagine what a cat one would say, and it would have to be censored. That's for sure. Because it would be cursing a lot, I think.
Actually, I think my kitten would be "I love you" when I just met you, and my older cat would be the just a stroke, just bleep.
Exactly.
No words but bleeps.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's not "I love you," I just met you. It's more like "I know you" and "F you." It'd be the exact opposite.
Wow. Wow. Well, okay. So would you want to see collars like that on pets, or would that just be...
More than anything, I want to make it affordable so that I know that there's the technology in there for chips, to put a chip in an animal so you can so it's found, you've got all the registration information. And I know that it exists that you can use said chips or other types of chips to locate them as well, but it's not economically feasible. And I really want to see some economically feasible strides made as far as that goes, because unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our cats and pets over the years, and it wouldn't need to happen. I mean, things happen. I get that. But there's a lot of times where if we knew where they were, it would be so helpful. And there's no reason that, if I can track my phone, if I can track my car, if I can track like people, then, you should be able to affordably, as a pet owner, track your pet. And I just think that I would love to see that technology really, really come out, and be something that would be readily available.
It's coming cheaper, because I know Apple has devices that you could put into a dog collar or a cat collar, but it's still, at least $25 a shot. And if you have multiple pets, that gets kind of pricey.
Yeah, and it has to be a chip. I mean, collars get lost all the time. And so it has to be a chip. And if you're going to put a chip in them anyway, it just makes sense to make it so that they can be trackable as well as something that can be scanned and read if they're found.
Mm-hmm. Well, most of the times, like when we find pets and everything in the neighborhood and we take them to the vet or something to get scanned, and, a lot of them already do have the chips in them and everything from when they were. And it's just like, but then you have the feral cats and everything, which kind of sucks. That's why you should spade and neuter, my friends. Spade and neuter, as Bob Barker used to say.
Spade and neuter, and then chip to track.
Exactly. Well, spade and neuter, and and that's the people who have the pets, and then who don't spade and neuter their pets.
True.
So, pretty cool though. All right, I think that's it. We're getting goofy now. So.
We're getting goofy. What? You mean we haven't been?
Have you listened to the show, Mr. Gordon? No.
Exactly.
That's going to wrap up another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Chip, thank you so much for joining. If only your internet connection was so willing to join us, too.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
There's somebody probably, crossed a wire or something like that. If
yeah.
there's a better technology out there,
Ghost in the machine. Yeah.
Exactly. Anything you want to shout out about, sir?
Not anything personal. I mean, we're plugging along right now. So unfortunately, I don't have anything kind of good to shout out about. At least nothing for this.
Are you guys could be at Dragon Con this year?
Unfortunately, no. Long story short, just not in the cards this year. And unfortunately, I was really looking forward to this list, though it now looks like a lot of them, going back to the strike from earlier, it looks like a lot of these guys may not, we're going to see what happens in the next few months. They may show up, but they may not.
Now we are a cat video. Thank you.
Yes. This is the one that would say, I just met you and I love you. But it's it looks like with the strike that I think there's some debate as to whether these guys can do like panels, like they could, you're gonna get a lot of these guys can probably do like still autographs, but I'm gonna be curious to see, especially if the strike's still on in September, whether they're gonna be able to do panels and that kind of stuff.
It doesn't sound like they're going to be able to do panels. Most of the panels with any celebrity or anything involved for San Diego Comic-Con, which is, as of this recording, is this upcoming weekend, is pretty much out the window. So
the writers had already killed that one, I thought, and there's a lot of people weren't going to show up this year because the writers.
Well, that's more of a promotional show too. I'm sure we've got 2 months or a month and a half anyway, so I'm sure there's a lot of conventions happening between now and then. I'm sure it's going to be resolved, but by the time the Dragon Con comes around.
I'm not holding my breath on that, but okay. So, but we'll have to wait and see. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the strike and everything. And, I know some.
Heck, it might even be over.
No, not that quickly, sir. It's interesting. I know some podcasts actually who are going on hiatus because of the strike and everything, because a lot of them, deal with the industry and everything, and they feel like they don't want to cross picket lines and such by talking about the industry and stuff like that. And it's interesting. And I've actually thought it crossed my mind about us going on hiatus also because of it. But we have so much other things we could talk about. So I'm not worried about it and everything with Earth Station One. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do and everything. So, but we are very pro, Writers and Actors Guild. So definitely.
Absolutely.
Earth Station One is fully behind it. The ESO Network is behind it. And, definitely, we are definitely all in favor of what they're striking for. And it's going to suck for a while for the entertainment industry, but it's going to, all hopefully be better for it in the end. And, and unions are not bad things, folks. The reason, you go to work and you can actually leave at 5 p.m. is because of a union somewhere down the line. The reason you don't work on the weekends is because of a union. The reason, you go to, you work in maybe a factory or something and your doors aren't bolted shut, and, you actually have emergency exits or you get 15-minute breaks during the day on top of a lunch break. It's because of unions, because of safety and everything. So be thankful for these unions. So, when people say, oh, it's the union's fault because of all this bad stuff that's happening. No, it's not. So it's usually the people who are making all the money out there are saying that the unions are bad. So definitely.
They didn't have to be put in check.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be necessary, but unfortunately they do.
Oh, exactly. You know what? So I saw somebody say, an average writer makes, for a TV show or a movie, makes an average $47,000 to $67,000 a year. And you know what? Bob Iger makes $47,000 an hour. So he has no reason to be bitching and moaning about what these people want. So it's pretty bad. And there goes our Disney contract. Sorry, but oh well. So that was my shout out for tonight. And you got anything, Mr. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to a form of entertainment that's not really that you can still enjoy, and that is comics. Our good friend Justin Gray has got a new Kickstarter. His neo-Western sci-fi comic book series, Hope, is back on Kickstarter. The next 2 issues, 3 and 4, are now available on a campaign. And if you missed out on the first one, that's fine. You can get all 4 issues, 1 through 4. You can back them up all through I think early or mid August. It's a great series. Check it out. It's by our good friend Justin Gray, who's a great talent. So if you know anything about his work, even if you don't know anything about his work, check it out, because I'm sure it'll be something you'll want to check, that you'll want to get and support, because it's quite a unique vision and the art on it is fantastic. Justin always manages to get some great creative teams, collaborate with some great creators. So check it out. It's on Kickstarter. It's called Hope, and it's issues 1 through 4 that are available right now through Kickstarter.
Awesomeness. Definitely check it out. Justin does such an amazing job. And his stories are so much fun to read and everything. So definitely check it out. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up this week's episode. Thanks for listening to the Earth Station One podcast. Remember, always, we can't do this without you. If you want to support the podcast, please check out our Tee-Public store and get some really cool ESO Network swag. Also, remember, if you want, please listen to our show before the rest of the world. Why not join the ESO Network Patreon? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us here on Earth Station One. Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/ESO Network. We want to hear from you also. Please write us anytime at feedback@earthstation1.com. Remember, you can find Earth Station One wherever fine podcasts are found. And now, Earth Station One can be found in video format up on YouTube And folks, if you made it this far and watching us up on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. Just take 2 seconds, give us a thumbs up, let us know you're out there. We would really, really appreciate it. On behalf of myself, Mike Faber, Mr. Mike Gordon, and of course, Chip Johnson, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time here on the Earth Station One podcast. And of course, folks, stay science-y. And
Science!
we'll see you next time. Peace, and we are done. Ciao, everyone.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.